This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. This week's episode is brought to you by the New York Magic Conference and the Salute to Magic, both of which are taking place in one big day in New York City. That's going to be on Saturday, June 14th, and that's just going to be a few days from now. So be sure to register early in order to save a little bit of money. You can register early and save some money than paying a higher price at the door for the New York Conference. And also you can buy your advance tickets for the Salute to Magic and get a good seat while they last. So there'll be more information later on in the podcast about these two events. And you can always go to the Magic Convention Guide on the magicwordpodcast.com, where you can listen to an extended audio with more information. Well, this week we were at the M Hotel, which was at Buffalo, New York, and for this year's 4F convention, where we had talked with several people, actually, that we have featured over the past few weeks, and we're going to complete that here this week. Well, actually, we're not. We've got another one coming then next week. But this week, we're going to be talking with my friend Joe Monti. We've been friends for decades, and it was great to actually sit down and chat with him for a while. He has been a force behind the force. He has been someone who has worked not only with Criss Angel, but also others in a consulting and a producer capacity, and has just a lot of really great ideas. He's one of these guys who is not as well known, perhaps, because outside of New York City area, because although he does perform around a lot, his main thrust, I believe, and his impact has been behind the scenes as a consultant and a producer, as I said. He has, however, made a mark on the public when he had fooled Penn and Teller with his 3-card Monty, which is kind of funny with his name of Joe Monti. And so we talk a little bit about that, as well as many stories about him working with Criss Angel in their early years together, in which they were working with Mind Freak and other magicians for that early television series. I think you're going to enjoy this week's episode. So please welcome my guest this week, Mr. Joe Monti, here on The Magic Word. Today we have got a guy who is, I started to say from New York, but also he's kind of global. He kind of works a little bit every place, not just across the United States, but also has been doing a lot of consulting work over the years, as well as performing. He is not only a magician, but a comedian. A lot of people consider themselves as comedy magicians, but not a lot of people are necessarily as funny as they think they are, as we are, myself being included in all that. Comedy magic is a very difficult kind of thing to do, and there are a few people who do it well, let's say like Matt King, or my guest today, who is someone who has been working with, as I said, other magicians. He has been a consultant for Criss Angel in the early seasons of Mind Freak, back in the days when Banachek was there, and several others. I think even, I don't know if he worked with Luke Jamay, back at the time. He was there for a short time, but, there were different people who kind of came and went under Criss working there as consultings. But also, not only that they kind of grew up together back in the Long Beach area, out in Hicksville and that area. So going to talk a little bit about that. And Joe and I go way back as well to the Magic Island back in the 80s in Houston, Texas. So again, longtime friend, first time on the episode. Please welcome my guest from New York City, Joe Monti. Hey there, Joe.
Thank you, Scott. Scott, you know why the world is a great place? Because me and you are facing each other.
Yeah.
We've known each other for now,
40 years?
Yeah, let's go with 40 years.
Yeah.
Now, it's early in the morning, for a magic convention, because we stay up late at night.
Yeah.
And my voice is, it couldn't be deeper. Me and Barry White, we have something in common. You'll never find another love like mine. But prior to me sitting here and you miking me up and we were discussing stuff.
Yeah.
It brought a tear to my eye because, and I'm too emotional about this. I love magic.
Yeah.
People ask me, why do I come here? They say family and all that.
And here, by the way, we are at the 4F convention.
In Buffalo,
close-up convention in Buffalo,
and I come here because my life has been up and down the last 8 years because of just, accidents and all that. But I put that behind me.
You had a horrible accident.
Yeah, I put that behind me. I'm a father of a single daughter who's 15, which often by itself, is rough. But she's sweet, and I got 2 other daughters. That's family.
Mm-hmm.
But I became a recluse. I really did. People wonder why am I not doing things. And when I say recluse, I used to perform a lot. I used to run around the world a lot, only because I needed to make money. And I also loved the challenge. But I stopped. I really turned things down. And also, I was being ignored anyway. When you get older, you tend to become a bit less relevant.
Less relevant, yeah.
Whether that's true or almost true, it don't matter. It equates to me not making enough money to get a house and all that.
Yeah, have a comfortable living.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And actually, this whole Palisades fire that just occurred for 2 months.
Right.
I leased something, and it wasn't my house, and it wiped it like you would.
Really?
Yeah, you'd never imagine. And the person who owned it had another house, and I don't want to mention his name because he might not want to be known, but well-known guy. And his answer when I said, "Oh my goodness, this is crazy," he said, "Onward and upward." Because that's
what are you going to do?
That's what wealthy people do. I know, but I was only leasing the place.
Yeah.
So my heart breaks for the people who
own property.
They wouldn't let us in. When they said, "Oh, evacuate," who knows that's going to happen? When I get into the accident, who knows that I might have possibly died? Mm-hmm. So why is it a great day? Because I'm here in front of you after 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be said about that because we've all gone through different trials and tribulations, and whether that it's health issues or all kinds of things. That's very true. And I touched on Criss Angel and also working and being in New York, and that you guys had gone back. And speaking of that, I know that Criss was from Hicksburg area. Hicksville.
You said Long Beach, Long Island.
Long Island. Yeah. I'm at Long Island. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I don't know exactly where he's from because I was a Brooklyn guy. Mm-hmm. But Long Island, it's a long island.
Yeah.
But he came from an area where you wouldn't think, oh, maybe a future star might come from.
Right.
But we're all stars. Some of us make a hell of a lot more money. And I must say this. Criss Angel puts on his $7,000 pants one leg at a time, just like we do.
Just like we do.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. But he had you on his radar, I guess, to be a consultant back then.
If you really want to know about that, I'll give you some details.
I do.
I was on a show called American Inventor, and I get a call from my friend Devlin from New York, a really good illusionist. Joe. Yeah, lovely guy. And he said, "Hey, Joe, Criss Angel wants you to come in down to being a consultant on his Mind Freak show." I didn't know much about the show. Mm-hmm. I was involved in TV before that with Viacom, which is a syndication company from 79 to 84. But I was like the guy who put together statistics for free TV and pay TV, which is what they called it at the time.
Nielsen reports and things like that?
No, it was like how much money it made in some territories.
Oh,
and I worked in the division, overseas division. Mm-hmm. So, it was, how much money, with syndication is that where CBS in 1962 had to, because of like monopoly kind of activity, they couldn't, they had to give an opportunity to local stations to be able to have really good films. And so they created Viacom, which was a syndication company, so that they didn't only have first run access, and it was only shown on Channel 2, like say the 10 Commandments. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's the business. It's simple. And the government broke it up. So CBS and NBC and ABC had to have other areas where they can allow stations in the middle of Iowa, like your local stations, to air the 10 Commandments and not be charged a fortune. So I knew TV. So I didn't know much about a Mind Freak and A&E, and Criss. I do know Criss was doing Gangbuster.
But you had not personally met him before.
Oh, I did. I knew him when he was younger.
I was going to say, I thought that you guys knew each other.
Yeah, I knew him when he was like 11 or 12 at Tannen's. But then the interesting thing is, years later, when I moved to California, in 1989, I moved to California. Criss would come out to California and he'd stay at my apartment, and we'd goof around. We'd goof around like crazy. And he always used to bring it up. So when I was told, hey, he wants to be a consultant, I thought, oh, yeah, I'd love to do that. But I'm working, I'm with this TV show, American Inventor. I was traveling on cruise ships, and I kind of naysayed it. Not that I didn't want to do it. I was too busy. Lucky me, right? And then about a year later, or almost a year later, Criss calls me and says, hey, Joe, it's Criss Angel. Come on, man, come on down and be, consultant for me, season 4. I went, 'cause at that time, everything slowed down a little bit. I went, okay. Oh, bring some ideas. He goes, here's a brilliance of everybody who has ever been successful. They surround themselves with brilliant people.
Right. Creative people.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to exclude myself from it because I want to be arrogant. But Criss had some brilliant consultants like Luke Dancy and Luke Germay, Banachek, and I can go on. The list is long.
Right. And
he had a business acumen. He always had a brilliant business acumen. When he was in the basement of the WW, like the World Wrestling Federation.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
In New York.
In New York City.
That was Dana, whatever the guy is, who's a billionaire now, who runs, now I'm not a big wrestling fan. And I knew about his Mind Freak show. But that show was a good show for an amateur, if you want to call it that.
Right. It was kind of a Cirque du Soleil-ish type show, as I recall.
Yes, it was a good show. I watched footage of it, and I'm going, that's
way ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time.
Yeah.
And Dave Barham, who was a big guy at the firm, which is he managed Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro. He got tons of people. I don't know all of them. I might forget, but I know Leonardo DiCaprio was one of them, and I believe Robert De Niro was other. Then others I can't remember. But he saw in Criss Angel a future star.
Yeah.
Now Dave Barham, I'm not sure if you know this, is a really good magician.
Did not.
He had a show in Los Angeles at the Roosevelt, which, like Steve Cohen in New York, the Brilliant Show, it was on that level. It was amazing. Yeah. I knew he was doing magic, but Dave, when we would sit in meetings, was the quietest guy. He'd be looking at his phone, and somebody would say, what do you think about that, Dave? Like Criss would say that. And he goes, yeah, I'll roll with it. He never lifted his head up from the phone. I guess, that's how, if it works.
Yeah, multitask, different people can work like that, yeah.
So Criss, I said, okay, I'll come down. And now my friends are joking, you better come down with a briefcase, an empty briefcase, push it toward Criss and say, fill that with money and I'll give you ideas. That doesn't, no, it's not like that.
Exactly.
Those who really respect and love magic, and you're one of them because, and I've got to take a sidebar here. Do you understand? I'm Joe, and my mind goes everywhere, but I try and bring it back in. Congratulations on being nominated for, your podcast at FISM.
FISM, yeah, thank you.
And as I said to you, my only answer to anybody saying, do you think he's worth it? Who else? Who else?
Thank you.
You got, I know sometimes you get up and it's a bit of a chore to put, find people and all that. What's beautiful is that I think, there's a lot of good people.
Yes.
Who have had a lot of good careers.
Sure.
In our profession, which is not easy. Now, I only made money because there's one underlying issue with being a magician. You can either be an arrogant butthead, and take mistakenly make the mistake of believing your
own press.
Your own press. Yeah, exactly. That. And unless you're somebody like a David Blaine or Criss Angel or David Copperfield, who it's about content. They have the content. So Dave Barham saw that in Criss. It was called Mind Freak.
Yeah.
Criss was always a business guy like that. It was supposed to be mind, and I won't use the word, Chris was a mind freak. And so when Dave Barham was a genius at, promoting people, went to A&E and said, we've got, basically it's already a show that I don't have to explain much. This magician is very hip and
edgy.
Now, and even the name Mind Freak, which is very different. Let's look at some of the footage. It was a no-brainer. And one important thing, and a few magicians actually asked me this, because, by the way, I produced Criss Angel's show for 3 years.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. The TV show?
His TV show on A&E. I was a senior consultant. I was only a senior consultant because I was older. I worked senior. Banachek was let go. I won't talk about that now. Great guy. Of course, he went back with Criss, but they had they're falling out, their own reasons.
Right.
And Criss kind of went, "Hey, you want to be a producer, Joe?" And we were good friends, and he loved the material that I would offer and work with. And anybody who says that, the consultants, they're the ones that created the magic, that's a lot of BS. Criss would come to us, say, "I want to do this, I want to do that," and then we were giving out marching orders to do it. Now there would be suggestions, but Criss was very picky. He didn't want to be. He always said, I want to push it forward. I want to, I can do linking rings. No, I'm paraphrasing. I want to do, linking belts. I'm making this up, but it was slamming two people together, and now the belts are locked.
Okay.
And now we go, wow, that's interesting. So right. So Criss isn't a schmo.
So he wasn't just sitting there waiting for ideas to fall into his lap from his consultants, but he was actually proactive in coming up with ideas, saying, "Hey, here's an idea, how to make it work." Or okay.
Yeah, and I know because I said that many times. Sure. I get naysayed on some stuff that was a little too over the top. But case in point, David Blaine did the bullet catch.
Yeah.
Or at least a bullet that ricocheted towards the metal cup.
You're right.
It was a real deal. It was creepy as hell. I watched that thing and that build up, the reality build, as they say in TV, to it, we couldn't wait. And he delivered. Criss wanted to do a bullet catch too, his own version. But A&E, no, absolutely not. So Dave Barrett comes to me and says, "Joe, Criss wants to do this thing, a Russian roulette thing, and he can't do it. And any ideas?" And the first thing that came to my mind was, because at that time Criss had haters. I said, "Well, how about this?" And this is something Criss always spoke about. He always wanted to show the haters that they could be, that they're getting, they shouldn't be doing it, because a lot of people just be nasty online.
You're right.
By the way, if you say, "Is there an off switch, Joe?" Unfortunately, there's not. I said, "Let's get some haters who want to kill you." Now I see his look on his face, like, he's looking over his shoulder. "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "You always." Now nobody knew where I was going, except Luke Dancy. I said, "Here's the idea. At the Luxor, they have these. People don't realize, but the elevators on the side, because of the pyramid, are actually, they go down at an angle.
Angle, right? Yes.
Like a funicular, or like you see in Switzerland. I believe that's what it's called. And I said, why don't we have elevators, like they're all open, except one's closed, but they're covered. And now the haters decide which one you're to jump through. And you could well jump through the one that you fall to your death." Done. Criss reworked it. I believe, if I vaguely remember, because those elevators that go like that.
Yeah, at an angle.
Yeah, they're on opposite sides of the Luxor. So you got to be at a place where there's like all of them in a row. And if you watch the episode, you'll see. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And on the last one, there's the choice between an empty shaft that fall to your death, or, an elevator being on that floor. Criss grabs the guy who chose, that elevator that, you find out afterwards could have fallen to his death.
Right.
Grabs the guy by the collar and he's about to smash through the paper, but goes to the right and smashes into the elevator that's there.
Oh, okay.
Wow. You can feel the
emotion and the intensity.
Yeah. And me as, I was producer. There's an executive producer above me. Eric Recker was brilliant. I was just the guy. When he said, "You want to be a producer?" I said, "Yeah." Didn't realize that I went from being fun to being instant arsehole, because now I had to tell the fun consultants that we were all, but hey, you got to have this on time. But Criss, that was Criss.
Yeah.
And I loved it. 22 episodes. We did the building implosion, where I was the online host. And I get overly excited and passionate about it. But Criss Angel is a business guy. And that's what most magicians, if they ask the question of, well, how come he is and I'm not? And then the guy asked me at this convention, 4F, a really nice guy, doesn't have the visual what it takes of Criss, but a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
And Dave Barham had this to say about that. And I repeated it to the guy who at this convention asked me. You have to be in front of the public, especially TV public, if you want to be a TV guy, consistently every single week. Dem's artifacts. And he said, look, Criss was on ABC Family. And it got good ratings, and for cable, to get a few million people watching, it's astounding.
To pull people away from the network.
It's too much. It's too much stuff out there.
Exactly.
Did you know that Penn Teller's show on the CW network is the #1 show on the CW network on Friday night?
I did know that it was, and also Masters of Illusion. I know has,
but not as much as
Penn Teller?
Fool Us.
Okay.
But the numbers, nowhere near what they used to be, for any other show.
Yeah.
Like right now, if you get 700,000 people watching a show on Friday night.
That's a lot.
Oh, it's a lot. I was on a show in the role of Eugene, the disco magician, Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah.
It was a hugely popular show. But they canceled it because it was only getting 6 million viewers.
Yeah.
It did something. And yes, you can go on the internet and find me as Eugene, the disco magician. And so in finality, on the question of Criss Angel and why being a good business person does work, too many people become settled in, I do good magic and I make my living in the party circuit or whatever. But if they want to be big, look at Dynamo.
Right.
Dynamo in his market, they didn't know Criss Angel. And so his manager was like, okay, we'll do Criss Angel like stuff. And the kid became a millionaire and uber popular.
Right. Yeah, in Dynamo's case, it seems like that he had a health issue and has bowed out of the public eye
recently.
For a while. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I believe
he had it when he was younger too. He was sickly, as they would say, when he was younger, which was part of his. People knew that who watched because my in-laws are from the UK. My ex-in-laws, my ex-wife is British. And yes, but I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I may be wrong on that, but
Stephen
seems like,
is his name.
Yeah,
good
right,
guy.
Stephen. Yeah, I don't. I think I've met him once over in Blackpool, but it's one of those guys that's kind of like hard to get near, like Darren Brown or something. Somebody once they reach a certain.
What you mean?
Paul
Because an entourage blocks you?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not necessarily the entourage, but other people who are wanting to get near him or an autograph or whatever.
Yeah, but that's a good thing, on some level. On that subject, I've been with Criss and we've gone out to eat in Las Vegas during the peak of his TV, popularity. And that's when, and believe we'll talk about a whole nother time, but Criss always was a good-hearted guy. When people came up, they wanted autographs or pictures.
Right.
But some people got nasty. They were like,
they demanded it. Felt like they owned a piece of him.
Yeah. And you realize why people put a shell around them.
Sure.
Like I've seen it. And there was a guy at the Luxor who, and I saw all the security footage. People wanted to hurt him and
wow.
Now they got facial recognition, which is better. But I remember people walking up on him, from behind, hey, and hitting him back. And Criss was cool about it. But then one guy wanted to take a picture and he turns to Criss, goes, can you take the hat off? And Criss looked at me and goes, are you kidding me? People think they own you.
Right.
But it's been like that forever. They see a celebrity who's in a movie or something.
Right.
And they think that person is that person, and those who are bold enough to approach them think that they own the actor or the actress.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying there.
Crazy.
About that then too. I was out there and had been part of his entourage. I spent a week with him, and so I kind of know about that way of life. Now, this would have been
you've seen it.
when you, I think you were there. It was when Billy Gibbons with
what season?
ZZ Top. I don't remember the season, but I remember the trick. It was the one where he went into the guitar store and was going to find a guitar, just
he does thing through his
muscle
neck?
reading. Huh?
He does the thing through his neck with the ring?
I think
with the guitar string.
He may have done that also. But it's just that we had all gone over to some party, I think that Playgirl magazine or Hustler or somebody was putting on, and
because there's a Hustler casino in Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it was when I went over to the MGM, and it was because I remember going upstairs and just going through the red velvet ropes, where they would let us through, and he had a wad of cash, and a bunch of us just following him around, and and as he went through the casino, as you know, about people's heads will be snapping. I mean, they'll be sitting at the tables,
right.
It's like, hey, there's Criss Angel, isn't it?
But he, they always say, was that you wish for what? What's that thing about you don't
wish for? I can't remember.
Understand that what you might get is what you wished for, so don't naysay.
Be careful what you wish for.
That's it.
Yeah.
Criss was on that subject, and I'm telling you, I felt for him because when we were sitting down, beginning of season 4, we were all in a room, and one thing that Criss always was really good at was surrounding himself with people who aren't yes men and all. You get some hanger-ons, but he knew, and he broke down to say, guys, thank you. I'm grateful. And the word grateful is a beautiful word. I wouldn't be where I am at right now without you. Yeah, and the people before you.
Yeah.
But one thing that he emphasized was, if I'm to create something, we're family, and people who want to exploit me will be fired, and there were those who did.
Yeah,
and that's not an arrogant thing to say. You can get hurt, man. Celebrities get stabbed sometimes, and he just wanted to have fun, be fun, and make it effective, and that's the bottom line.
Going a completely different direction over here that I had alluded to, Comedy Magic, and how difficult that it is to do that. And I know you had worked comedy clubs as well. You got a thing that's coming up on June the 12th. Is that right?
Yeah.
At the Johnny Carson Theater in Omaha, or Lincoln, or where is it?
Yeah, it's in Omaha, Nebraska. Ben Seidman, who's a brilliant, he was one of
because he worked with you too.
Yeah,
I remember he was working with us that week as well.
Okay, yeah. But then I was there.
Okay.
It becomes a fog, right?
We were trying to do something. I remember, and it seemed like Johnny Thompson was there. We were in the bar, and we were trying to light the bar on fire to spell Ace of Hearts or something,
Probably. I was such like I was so obsessed with making sure shots were right. I was over in Video Village with 2 cameras on my lap, you're looking at the shots. Because one thing Criss was very nice about, he allowed me the courtesy of saying, nope, that doesn't look good. Oh, let's reshoot that. And because the Believe show was happening, I had to go to rehearsal. I had like a hard out. So, I had to be careful about what I said no, yes to. But Ben Seidman on Ben, brilliant guy.
He really is. I have nothing but respect for that guy.
Brilliant and funny and hip. Yeah, I mean, uber hip, right? He did the Johnny Carson Theater, and they loved him, and they allowed him to book the people who, and that's what,
because he knows the right people, I guess, to come in.
So good producers do. They put something in the hands of capable people, and Ben is uber capable.
Yeah.
And when he asked me, I'm like, I'm grateful.
You're kind of the senior person, because as I recall, the other 2 people, like Matt O'Neill and
the fetuses.
But And now, a word from our sponsor. Saturday, June 14th is going to be a memorable day in the history of magic for New York City in particular, and also for the whole region. People should be coming from miles around in order to help celebrate magic at the New York Magic Conference, which is going to be from 10 until 4 that day. And then later that evening from 7 to 9 will be the Salute to Magic. I've got with me right now Mr. Joe Setti, who's going to tell us a little bit about the Salute to Magic. Hey there, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, the 116th Salute to Magic is happening on June 14th. It'll be at the Playhouse Theater at the Abrams Arts Center in downtown Manhattan. In addition to hosting world-renowned magicians at this show, from Eric Walton, who will be our Master of Ceremonies, Billy Shui, John Graham, as well as Javi Benitez as our headliner for this year. We also are honoring one of our own Parent Assembly members, Herb Scher.
Sounds like
as the Magician of the Year, actually.
That sounds like it's going to be a great lineup. And that's only, you said, about a 15-minute drive, I guess, or a tube ride. I sound like I'm from England. Subway ride from the Abracadabra shop over on West 21st Street. Is that right?
Absolutely. Very convenient to go down and check out the New York Magic Conference and get a full day there of magic and then end your evening at the Salute to Magic downtown. Like I said, no more than a 15-minute subway ride between the two events.
If you check out the website over at New York Magic Conference, you can see that if you can purchase your tickets in advance for only $45. Otherwise, if you show up at the door, it's $65. And what is the cost for the Salute to Magic?
Sure. Adult tickets are $80 and children's tickets are $40. And you can get those as well at salutetomagic.com.
Two great links. You guys should go and check them out. And plan to be in New York City on June 14th.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Joe. And now back to our conversation with Joe Monti.
But, here's the thing. Johnny Carson loved magicians.
Yes.
Now, I didn't know much about his afterlife of the show. You hear stories, but I don't care about the stories.
Right.
To me, my life is too busy to
worry about that.
Listen to that nonsense.
Right.
He was a sweetheart on camera.
Mm-hmm.
He respected the performer so much. So he had so many magicians on.
He did.
Even now, when I see all those reruns,
mm-hmm.
they're as viable now to watch as they were
Brian
then.
Gillis and all these guys. Yeah, who
are beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm working at June 12th with two other people, and I MC the show.
Mm-hmm.
I could have done a spot, but I preferred to MC because.
Were you, by the way, ever on Johnny Carson?
I never was.
Okay.
Never was.
The reason I mention that is because Pat Hazel, another friend of mine who's a comedy musician, had done that.
And a comic.
Exactly. He wrote for Seinfeld and all this, but he had done this thing then as well at the Johnny Carson.
Oh, he did? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think last year or the year before.
I was impressed with Pat Hazel. Pat Hazel had a one-man show. I'm not sure if you know this.
Yeah, Wonder Bread years.
Yeah, right. Where like the bed lifted up off the ground, I think, if I remember at the end.
Don't remember that, maybe.
Yeah, and I think, and I could be a bit off, like Steven Spielberg came to see the show, and they were going to there was some deal that was going to be worked out for him to have his own special or something. I don't know much more about that, so I won't say anymore. But Pat Hazel, you see, comedy. Mm-hmm. Comedy, straight stand-up, I never did.
Okay.
I tried that. That is talk about walking on a barbed wire, electrical wire, and all the dangers in the fall and that's stand up. A lot of stand up comics are very miserable people off stage, and going on stage is a cathartic thing for them to relieve it.
Sure.
And I'm not a drinker, not a druggie, and all that would occur backstage at comedy clubs. But you do know that, like in the past, straight comedians did not like magicians.
I know. There's prop acts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's a quote from some I forget what it was, but that props are the there was something about props are the death of comedy.
Oh,
I'm paraphrasing, and Bertrand Russell maybe said something like that. But guys like Matt King, when I was working at colleges with Dave Chappelle,
Sure.
who Dave is huge now. Mac was at the local comedy club, and I'd go see him. I'd run down, after I did the show, and the thing about Mac is he committed. He's up there and howdy everyone.
Yeah.
And here's a crowd. Who is this hick?
He develops his character quickly.
He was good and it's great now. And which we all should be and force ourselves to be if we're not. He's a kind person. Lance Burton, Matt King, they're from Louisville, Kentucky.
Right.
I could only learn from them. I ain't going to the grave without people saying, "Yeah, he was a bit of an ass." Not that I intended to be, but I had to be a producer. So, like I said, instant arsehole, right? Yes. So, and thank you, Scott, for even having this platform, which is why you deserve that FISM thing, because who else?
Thank you. I appreciate that. So you're going to be emceeing that show along with them, and is that like a 90-minute show, or
is it 90-minute show? Like an hour 15, 90 minutes.
Yeah,
and no breaks. But it's Johnny Carson theater.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Beautifully, I love it.
It's very cool. So there, as far as developing comedy, then do you sit down and actually script it out?
Never, never. I see books on scripting, and I've been diagnosed with ADHD, high level ADHD. And my doctor said of that, a lot of people have, ADHD or whatever they want to, title it. Like, I remember it was like ADD. And then I joked one time when I had kids, I rearranged the letters to be DAD, for dad. But I was never antsy, but people would always say, "Is there an off switch?" I didn't know that. It was just, if you remember, there was an old term, "Hey, he's got St. Vitus dance." You ever hear that?
Never heard that one.
It was a term my dad used to use. Sit down, you got St. Vitus dance.
St. Vitus dance.
Yeah, apparently, if you look it up, St. Vitus, there was kids would be, back 100 years ago. And I think St. Vitus tried to calm them down with Jesus, or I don't know, something like that. But I was never, I might have been, a little over the top at times, but I didn't know it. But yeah, they prescribed a medication, which at first it worked, but then I gave up on it because I don't want to be addicted to, what's Adderall,
right?
Because it's methamphetamine salts, and my brother is a drug addict, and I'm hard against drug addicts. I used to drink, not a lot, but it just doesn't do anything for me. My passion has always been be on stage,
right?
And so comedy, comedy. Okay, this is a theory I'm using for years, and I think it can help magicians out and people want to be comedy magicians. There's a whole thing like, don't be afraid to fail, right?
Right. A
lot of people are afraid to fail.
True.
Because unfortunately, you get in a situation where somebody doesn't hire you back. There's still open mics. Doing it in the mirror is not, you're not going to get you anywhere. But look at Gazzo, he went out on the street. Look at these street performers went out on the street. And they knew instantly if they were good enough because their hat was empty, no money.
Yeah, that's right. You know right away whether they like it or not.
And if you do an open mic night, you don't know.
No.
So people got to be careful of doing that because they think they did great.
Good point.
Record everything. People now have phones. They the world is I'm certain there's an audio recording of Jesus at the Last Supper going, "Judas, sit down." It's just, there's so much being recorded. And I started doing that instead of scripting. And here's my theory. You can go a long way throwing, crap, let's say that at a wall. People used to say, "But you're on stage. It's like you threw crap at a wall,
right.
then whatever, stock you used." I went, "No,
right.
No, it's a little more planned than that. It was a stucco wall." And if you think about the theory behind that or the reason behind it, because I didn't just do it I did it at home and I thought something was funny. Like, for instance, there's a trick with a 5 of diamonds, and somebody chooses a card, but it happens to be the 4 diamonds. And you go, "I got you. I look at 5 of diamonds." Have you seen this?
Then the pip moves.
Yeah, the pip move. So I have a premise of, by the way, I was at the Magic Castle and some guy saw me and he loved me so much he wanted me to come to a private show in his country, which was Colombia, but it was a little bit far away. But I said, "Oh, I'm Joe Monti. What's your name?" He said, "Pablo Escobar." And I didn't know who this guy was, but for some reason, we were up all night talking about magic, all these references, right? And so when that point comes, I said, Pablo was having a great time, but boy, he had a blast when I did this. And now I hold the card and I go, like that. And now the diamond goes and the audience falls out,
We have a good premise there.
You have to.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Scott, you said it. You got to have a premise for your magic routine.
Right.
Instead of just, hey, look at these rings. They're going together.
Right.
People who narrate that.
Right. It has to be a story. It has to be something that will get the audience involved and want them to care. I think if you're just going to say, look at the pretty thing, it's like, well, anybody can be holding that. You might as well be a demonstrator from a magic shop that's, doing.
And you said the demonstrators are allowed to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But you notice people will they'll have a deck of cards or a ring and they'll go, I've got a ring here. The audience sees that already.
Yeah, don't need to explain that.
Yeah, people should watch their act with the volume off. I know some of the premise needs verbiage, but a lot
setup,
a lot of it visually. Some people never get to anything visual. The audience is like, oh Jesus, when is the guy? They're saying this subliminally.
Yeah,
which is why, the techniques that made me work to the audience was manipulating the audience. And the way I manipulate the audience is, Georgie Carl used to do this, the physical comedian, vaudevillian. He'd come out and the microphone would be really high. And he'd come out and look at it and he'd jump back. Mm-hmm. And the audience, he instantly, the audience, like, the little feeling, oh, the little short dude.
Yeah.
I do the same thing.
Okay.
I tell
lower the mic.
Yeah, I tell the host or whoever's like, I go, put the mic really, really high. And I come out and do that. And I hear the audience giggle a little bit because in the first 30 seconds, they're going to decide if they want to roll with you or not.
Right. So you got to be a little self-deprecating.
And I do. And if I'm doing a show and I'm not on a riser, I come out and say, hi, everyone. I'm Joe Monti. And just want to let you know, for those of you in the back, I am standing up. and they go, and now I take out a little a stool and I put it on the ground. I said, I'm the only magician who uses a booster seat. Second thing, right? Yeah. And I own them, as long as I don't insult them.
Right. Well, you've hit upon something that's important, I believe, also, and that is to be brief and by introducing your character, because I think, again, some people have a setup that takes too long. So the story to build that premise may take too long before you get to the first effect. I've talked with restaurant magicians about this, or people who are trying to get into restaurants or do strolling or whatever. If you're going to be introducing your character, I understand that, or you're trying to get into the story, but there should be some magic that takes place so they recognize that you're a magician.
Restaurant. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, because we're magicians, I was going to say not storytellers, but in a way we are, but you got to kind of combine both. But you can't be too heavy on the storytelling.
100%, Scott. Yeah. I mean, you're in a position where not only do you know and love magic, because you interview people, you've heard so many angles of, how people are good at what they do and it all comes from failure, because you talk, and the audience is bored.
Well, that was something that Doc Eason would tell people who are going to be bar magicians. You need to fail. And because then you know where the angles are and what to correct then the next time, for that. Yeah. But I was going to say another thing is making sure that the audience recognizes the magic happens. I love Mike Hammer's act. There's a guy who
I love Mike. Oh, Mike. Yeah.
He's a comedy magician.
Acerbic.
He is,
but
he knows also how strong the magic could be and how to focus on that. So in other words, next time someone is going to go, or whoever's listening, go to see Mike Hammer, notice that before the effect happens, there'll be a pause. And it's not necessarily a noticeable one unless as a magician you are, but there'll be enough of a breath or something kind of like that.
Interesting.
Where that's just before it happens. I mean, it's been rapid fire, as you say, he's really talking real fast and he's acerbic, et cetera. And then the magic happens. So he just kind of slows down for a moment.
I guess
and that focuses the attention on, hey, magic happened, because you don't want this to be so fast and then the audience say, did something just happen there?
100%. That's been happening too much to some of the people I've been watching. They're so enamored. And again, I'm not pointing anybody out specifically, but what you just said basically was some people don't recognize that they should be in their own audience watching them, and they should feel as though they've got something else to do when you're watching yourself.
Yeah.
So somebody should get to it fast because they got something else to do. Restaurant, people got to order.
Right.
Restaurant,
you're on a clock there too.
Yeah. I never liked doing restaurants only because I didn't like the standing on the side and unless they promoted it big time, the magician going from table to table. I was good at it, but didn't like it. There's something about food and interrupting. But that's my pet peeve. But on my camera, Mike is in a Bible study, an absolute, course 101 of how, even if you are doing something that's very delicate, this environment now is, there's so much craziness going on and a lot of feelings and divisiveness one way or the other, that the world needs magic and comedy. It absolutely does. It always has. Chaplin, is after World War I or whatever. And Mike does stuff that I could never get away with.
Yeah.
I could never. Now, I've tried to. Don't think I haven't tried. Audience doesn't accept it.
Yeah, you have to have a certain personality, and he's kind of impish and has a grin that
he's a dork. He's if Don Rickles was thrown back in time. That's Mike Hammer, but he delivers with the magic.
Yeah.
The thing where he gets duct taped to a to the dolly.
That cart, the dolly. Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah,
I got fried. I mean, just think about that. Here it is. They're duct taping him in there, and it's just cringy, and then he's out of it.
Right. Yeah, it's a great trick. I believe that Keith Fields is the one who had invented that. So
is that right? Okay, you're good for him. Yeah,
sells that. Yeah, but that is that's a great effect, and he does it to great effect. As far as the comedy and everything else that he does with it.
And Scott, for a moment on something, there's so many magic props to buy. An audience that goes to see a magic show, illusionists, if I may say this for those who are listening, make the props look a little more indigenous than
more organic.
Yeah, a little more organic. Yeah. How more organic can you be than, hey, let's pull this
dolly, because we just use this to actually move some of our props and whatever else, and so whatever's going to be handy. Yeah, I mean that's right. That's why that I've always been a fan of impromptu type of magic. If you're working in a restaurant, you should be using the salt shaker, you should be using that,
correct, 100%.
And all this kind of stuff, as opposed to introducing these little cups and balls. Just use a coffee cup.
100%. I just did a trade show in Las Vegas, CinemaCon, which is a huge, massive. Tom Cruise was there because of his press junket, introducing the second part of Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
People go online, they'll see how massive it was. I was doing on the trade show side, cinemas get supplied with cups and popcorn containers and straws, and that's the company I was working with. They do biodegradable stuff.
Yeah.
So I get a call from Luke Dancy. Hey, Joe, this company wants you to, can you do your cups and balls? They saw you and they love the cups and balls that you do, which I love because only 3 balls, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. I know the magicians in the audience because they say, here are 3 cups and only 3 balls. When I bought it, there was a 4th one. I don't know why, maybe in case I lose one of these. And you have somebody giggle. And I didn't know why. And then up until the day or the day before, it was a packaging company. And David Regal, by the way, I got to give a shout out to David Regal. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I was fortunate to fly a private jet from Los Angeles to Buffalo here with the great Randy Pitchford, who is such a lover of magic. And until I saw that Cardini lecture he did here, didn't realize how much he respects the art,
and the history and preserving it.
Philanthropy and his wife who does her share of making sure, because we magicians talk shop talk. She talks business.
Yeah.
And when I saw a picture of Randy at Wizards, remember Wizards?
Of course.
I went, I remember that kid.
That's funny. That's funny.
And I said to him, I remember that kid. Holy cow. And here he is.
Yeah, I know that Christy is really the business part of that, and you really could tell last night when he was when Randy was talking about the joy that Cardini had given him. And also, I had spoken with him about how that he had come across the material that is at the Magic Castle that's on display in the museum there, basically, of Cardini. And he was going to buy that from Carol, or Aunt Carol, I guess, as he affectionately called her.
Swan?
Well, it was Swan's daughter, I believe. Okay. I've forgotten exactly
I know
the connection.
I don't know Swan's daughter.
Yeah. I believe that was the connection there. But the point is, it's like, well, I don't know what it's going to be worth, so it should go up to auction and I'll end up buying it.
Right.
And so this way that we can see how it gets bid up and what the actual value is. And that's what he did. So in other words, he's a very good guy and legitimate businessman and ethical.
He wants to keep, especially the history. That's his great uncle.
Sure.
And it's not just his great uncle, Cardini. I was militant about sleight of hand. I love sleight of hand. And I mentioned earlier about I have big hands and kids would ridicule me. And somebody gave me, my sister's boyfriend gave me a book when I was like 11. I didn't understand it. And I didn't understand it until I was in my 20s. And it was expert at the card table. He went and bought it from a magic shop. And he said, do some card tricks and kids won't ridicule you. Basically that, paraphrasing. But,
and by having big hands, that would be an advantage, I would think, where you can conceal things.
I didn't know. You know what? I used to hide them. Wear big jackets. I didn't feel really totally crappy when kids would do it. But man, oh man, when I started to force myself to be better.
Yeah.
I'd practice until there were stains on my hand with coins and cards. They weren't joking about my hands anymore.
Wow.
and Richard Kaufman, a good friend of mine at this convention, will not stop going, look at your hands. He does that.
That's funny.
One final note, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Cardini is another great study in character, in getting to the point, cutting to the chase. He made a lot of money, by the way, in his time. We're going back to the 30s and all.
Right.
He was a headliner, a magician. Wow, what? And he had, he worked on what he thought would work. The slick guy, top hat, and all that.
Right.
I sometimes my heart races when I see how much smoke, how much he's smoking. But he lived to a good old age. But the manipulation was articulate.
Completely. Perfection. Yeah.
Yeah. As a person who truly loves magic
and wearing gloves.
Yeah, and wearing gloves. But a little secret. I knew Bobby Baxter, who emulated Cardini, and he would do the same thing, emulating him. And I said, "How do you do with the gloves?" He goes, "You got to wet the gloves."
Makes sense. Sure. Yeah. Exactly. Going in a different direction as we start to kind of wrap up over here is with Penn Teller, because you were one of them who actually
a fooler,
gotten a fooler, right? And so you were doing a gigantic 3-card Monty. Your name Monty. Your name is not really Monty.
Middle name.
Your middle name is Monty.
Safuto is my legal name. Yeah.
Right. But is that something that you had developed over time? That was kind of like, because your name is Monty, talk about 3-card Monty.
Good question. All right. And I'll give it to you on the TV show. It tells it all. On the TV show, I wasn't going to lie. I don't want to be the guy who they did silly little images. My story of the Monty, it's true. I used to love to watch those guys in New York City with the 3-card Monty.
Sure.
To me, as I said on the show, I think it's the most perfect, call it a magic trick, whatever you want, ever. Is it a magic trick? No. It's find the ace. So when I saw Peter Pitt on Merv Griffin do what is people in the note, it's called chase the ace. It was big. I got big hands. How do I get the attention away? I got big cards,
right.
All the jokes that come with it.
Right.
Look how big these cards are. I had them made because when I was a kid, I saw these guys, and that's how big they looked to me.
Right.
And I was fascinated because we'll talk about it another time, but that 3-card Monty game hasn't changed. They're doing that. The guy is in ragged jeans, and the guy who just came to the city, the tourist, thinks he's bigger and better than that guy. And it was one said, when these guys lose, they want to bet more. And someone once said, I don't know who the actual quote is from, a man will spend $400 to win back 20. And that's how those guys do it. And I would watch them. Now, I made a mistake one time of calling them out, and you only do that once. Yeah. And so that's...
What did they chase you down or haul right you?
Yeah, they chased... It was in Diamond District in New York.
Yeah.
I was on a break. I was working at Viacom. And I saw this guy... There were the days when you had little envelopes, you had money in it, you got paid.
Okay.
And he's with his girlfriend, and he's losing. And he looks in the envelope like, okay, I got a few more bucks. And his girlfriend's trying to pull him away, and I'm watching this man. This is when I had a heart, and I must have been 21 or something. And I went, hey man, get out of here. Stop spending your money. And now you know instantly who the shills are, who the lookouts are.
Yeah.
I know who the dealer is. And I saw them and I went, I'm done. And I only had half an hour left to get back to Viacom, which is on 46th and Avenue of the Americas. The diamond just shoot on 47th Street. I ran.
Because, these guys are going to chase you?
I ran. I'm from a neighborhood, where you don't disrespect the people in the neighborhood, but you learn one thing. You become Jesse Owens. So I ran. Believe me, if Jesse Owens was next to me, on this day, he would have gotten gold medals. And I ran, and there was a pizza place that I always would go to, a lovely pizza. I ran in there and I locked myself in the bathroom. And they were bang, bang, banging.
Wow.
10, 15 minutes. It was
coming after you.
It was frightening. I ain't going to lie to you. It was in fear. And never did that again. So
good advice.
Yeah, that's good advice. So here's what I did. And Mike Close, I got to give him a big thank you. He allowed me the courtesy because I pitched. See, I could have done some sleight of hand. I was supposed to be on the show like a few seasons earlier, but they went with somebody else, I'm glad they did because I was always fascinated with Monty. I got two middle names. Being Italian, you get one, a confirmation. You're Joseph Monti Frank Safuto, but let's not go there. I loved it so much and practiced it. And Darwin, who I used to hang out with the governors, would do it. And he was so slow and articulate about it. But he showed me, the right way to release the card.
Okay.
And the very simple 3-step thing. 3 steps. Your job is to find that money card.
Okay.
Do you know where it is now? No, you missed it. And then you got to have that punch at the end. And that's exactly what that 3-card Joe is. I did not invent the props. They were invented in 1909 by Theodore DeLand, which is the thing that Peter Pitt did with the big. I ran to Tannins when I had money, and I wanted that. They handed me it. I practiced it. Little did I know, Supreme Magic in 1967 did the most brilliant thing with that effect. Big cards. They changed, and for those in the know, the mispipped cards in the original one was the ace and the 3. The Skinner routine.
That was the chase the ace?
Chase the ace.
Yeah.
Ace of clubs, 2 of clubs, 3 of clubs, all black.
Yeah.
Big. Ace had the mispipped 3, 2 normal, and 3 had a mispipped ace. So when you show the cards, it's ace, 3, 2. It don't make, harmonious world, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But when I got those props, I practiced the heck out of them. It was always in order because the ace of diamonds red, money card, 2 of clubs, 3 of clubs. But because the 2 had the mispipped corner, it's a normal act.
Sure.
So to fast forward, I practiced the hell of that. And when I auditioned at the Magic Castle, a few times I didn't get in, but then Peter saw me do that. And and I started doing that. And he came up to me one time before he passed on and said, "That's fantastic. You do a great 3-card Monty, Joe. It's better than mine." I said, No, I mimicked you. Those are not the same cards. I said, Peter, he was adamant that they weren't, they're not. And not an argument thing, but he was like, okay. After he passed on, I got a package from one of his people who were his partner or something. I don't know exactly. But really nice guy. Handed me, he said, Peter, I want you to have this. I'm like, what? And I reach inside and I pull out 2 sets of, one was Chase the Ace, and one was the Supreme Magic who changed him. And he goes, with the note that said, I told you, these were not the cards. and that set he gave me is what I made all the 3-card Joes at.
Yeah.
Now, that's the ungimmicked version. It's gimmicked.
Yeah.
Which I've been doing for years and did it in comedy clubs until it got right. Only 3 steps. Just like the guys on the street. The object is find the ace. You know where it is? Nope. Look here. You got taken. And now the big finale. With Penn and Teller, I must have had a moment of like a eureka moment.
Okay.
In 1985, Penn and Teller did a video with Run DMC. It was huge, called Tricky. And in there, they were the 3-card Monty dealers. They were the street, and they ripped off one of the rapper's girlfriends. And the rappers came back, hey, and made them cool by putting sneakers on them. And those sneakers were the very first time a rapper ever had their own sneakers, Run DMC, Adidas, whatever it was, Adidas. I mimic, if you watch the show again, you see Penn and Teller laughing because I pointed out the shoes. Because in this video, by the end, they went to Japan as Run DMC because they're all cool now.
Yeah.
And so the producers couldn't get the footage with release rights. But the storyline is, hey, everybody, I'm Joe Monti, and I love this thing called 3-Card Monty, and I want to help you all here with little like assistants. Don't play this game. There are people, miscreants on the street who do this. Oh, as a matter of fact, some of those miscreants are right here. The genius scoundrels, Penn and Teller, who did it on 1985. Oh, they loved it, and I pointed out my shoes.
Yeah.
So that one I did on there was exactly the same routine, same length, same timing, but I added a different method, and I had to do it, and I feel a bit dirty for it, but not enough. I took him down the line where they thought they knew the original version, but man, oh man, Scott, it has a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
And but ultimately, Mike Close said something that I thought was brilliant. He said, "Don't force the issue that, hey, I can hand out the cards.
Yeah.
Put them away.
Let them ask for it.
Let them ask for it."
Yeah.
So on their little things, hey, is it a flap card? Yeah. In the earpiece, talking about.
Right.
Is it a flap? No. It doubles it. No. I think they fooled you. There's a moment when, and I love it because it's glorious, because by the way, their marching orders for that season 10 was they don't want to ask the magician for the props because they said it felt mean.
Oh, I see.
And I said to Mike, but they have to ask for the props.
Yeah.
And if I offered to them, they know damn well I might have switched it or did something.
Right.
So Michael had the brilliant idea. He said, okay, this is what you do. You show 1, 2, 3.
Right.
And let them ask for it if they do.
Yeah.
And the gods of magic shone down on me. And that moment when he said, if I come up there, can I check the cards out? Became a nice iconic moment for me and the effect. And they did. And if you watch it, people watch it, you see Penn rubbing his thumb in the areas where the old version was. Well, and he goes, they're clean. They're absolutely clean. And he runs to the side. And I was emotional. Yeah, I couldn't help it. When that trophy came down, it was very dangerous and pointy. I felt that I've come out of my rut after all these hard years. And that now I'm here. And I accepted Randy's invitation to get on the channel and to Howard Hamburg, who was kind enough to say, Joe, you got to socialize more.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It's been wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being my guest.
Scott.
As we close, the name of my podcast is called The Magic Word, and you've listened, I always like to end by asking my guests, what is it that's important to you? What's your magic word or phrase?
My magic phrase is, Eric DeCamps is a good man. I'll tell you what, I might get a little soppy here. Me and Eric have known each other for more than 50 years.
Yeah.
We've always been a New York term, ball busters to each other. To be kind, it always helps us improve.
Brotherly kind of a thing.
I was unkind to him last year. I shouldn't have been, but I thought it was fun. Shame on me. In his lecture, I was sitting with Vic Tribuco, who's a lovely, brilliant guy. And I thought, I don't want to see a lecture. I know Eric, and maybe he might not want me in the room. He said very kind things about me. You're being a great coin guy. And I didn't know that until people came out telling me. And I felt like such a schmuck. He schooled me. So for those who are haters or have bad words to say about somebody, be careful, because you'll be schooled with kindness. That's my phrase.
That's
Thank
important.
you, Eric.
Good. And thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it. Always good seeing you, good talking to you, and I appreciate the in-depth conversation we've had over here, and I know everyone else got something out of it then, too.
I got hours more. We'll do it another time.
So with the Magic Word Podcast, that was Joe Monti. This is Scotty out. Thank you, Joe, very much for being our guest this week. I'm sure that everyone enjoyed hearing what you had to say. I certainly enjoyed our time together. I look forward to seeing you next time and spending a little bit of time chatting with you then as well. So I also want to encourage everyone, if you will, to go and check out our sponsors' websites. That is the NewYorkMagicConference.com and the SaluteToMagic.com. If you go to each of those websites separately, they will give you more information then about the events that's happening this Saturday, June 14th. So it's just right around the corner, folks. So if you're listening to this sometime after the 14th, then you missed it. I'm not going to be there to give you a report, but I'm sure it's going to be great. And it, again, is what they've had over 100 of the Salute to Magic. It's pretty amazing. So I know over the next couple of weeks, we've got some great guests who are going to be coming up that I've already recorded and looking forward to sharing with you. I'm going to be out of town for a little bit, and so I'm going to start working on these things to have them scheduled for release at the proper time. I want to encourage everyone, if you have not had a chance yet, to go and vote for me. That is, as the world's best magic podcaster. If you'll go to the FISM website, or if you just go to the magicwordpodcast.com, you should see a link there. There'll be a little graphic that you can click on that will take you immediately to the FISM website where you can then vote. And this is something that is not a popularity contest, so it is not determined. I should say the winners are not determined by the number of votes they get, but it does bring to the attention of the judges the importance of the convention and how much that you, the listeners, enjoy this as well. So if you have not yet voted for the Magic Word Podcast and also for the newsletter, which I call a pod letter, but if you've not voted for the newsletter, then please give us your votes in both of those categories. These are going to be some new online categories that they have not had ever in the past, so this is pretty brand new. And I'm excited just to be nominated, and as exciting and great as it is to be nominated, it's better to win. So with your help, perhaps I can. So please go out and do that. And while you're at that, when you're at the website, the Magic Word Podcast, if you have not yet subscribed for our pod letter, please do. If you have not yet donated to our podcast, please do. That's another opportunity for you to help keep this podcast going far into the future. So by helping to defray our various costs we have for attending magic conventions and for, of course, our paying for our server, our domain, and for hardware and software, microphones, etc. So anyhow, you get the idea, and I would appreciate whatever you can do. If you can donate or be a patron where you can give a monthly pledge, and with that, you get some pretty cool perks when you go through Patreon, too. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember that, first of all, Eric DeCamps is a good man. And you should always use kindness in every case to overcome harshness. This is Scotty out.